Hi everyone, my name is Dominika and I'm joined here by Carolin and Alicja. And we are part of the community team at the PROJEKT. So today we will be talking about community. So we will cover a couple of topics. We'll go through the basics, so the beginnings of your community work. We will discuss various elements of developing a strategy, and then some examples of daily work, so what we actually do as community managers. So before we dive in, I wanted to give you a glimpse into who we are as the community team, because just so we have a better visibility on what we do. So at the PROJEKT, we always try to focus on the gamers, and this is very important for us. Our communication is done entirely in-house, and we actually have a pretty big team. It's around 20 people, and we cover communication in 13 languages, so that's quite a lot. And broadly speaking, we are responsible for the communication to the general public, so via various social media channels, all the Twitters, Discords, our official forums, and news on websites and stuff like this, but also not only communicating online, but offline during various events and gatherings.
So thank you for introducing our team, and now I wanted to introduce you to our community and some of the cool things that they have done throughout the years, that they have done for us, basically. So here you can see they gifted us this handmade map of the continent from The Witcher, as well as for the 20th anniversary of our company, we got this poster with all of their signatures. We actually have a whole room dedicated in our company to the things that our community sent us our way. And it's from some handmade things to actually a master's degrees about our company, and like pictures of people who got connected through our games. So there's a lot of stuff, and we try to keep them all. But sometimes they get lost, like this one actually. And please don't be scared, because this is a doll handmade by prisoners from a prison who sent it our way. So your community can be everywhere and anywhere in the world. And last example is one of my favorite ones, actually. This is Haribo bears that we got sent by one of our community members from Germany. Here is a message from him that he attached to it, and actually 1 year later or something like that, he sent us a shitload of Snickers bars. So, so he feeds us sometimes. So this is what your community can be. If you communicate with them, you have a conversation with them, you inspire them, you empower them, and obviously this is something that everyone should be striving to achieve. And hopefully we can, with this talk, get you closer to that. So how do you begin? I would say that from the beginning you don't really have a community. You have like random people on the internet, maybe playing your game, maybe knowing about your game. So how do you get from those random people on the internet to the community? So I created an iceberg of the people that you can possibly reach. And if you know the concept of the iceberg, like at the very top, this above water level, everyone knows about it. And the deeper you go, the more involved in something, the more into something you have to be. So let's start with the tier 1, which I called casuals. So these are the people that just play the game. They don't really seek out the information about the game. But you can still reach them with something that they cannot miss. So like the traditional advertising, not really the community thing, but you can reach them with that. But also like in-game news, if you have those, like Steam news where they launch the game, they have to see it. Then we go a little bit deeper with what I'm calling the watchers. So these are the people that would actually want to find information about your game, so they're gonna follow you on social media, they're gonna try and find some information in gaming outlets, etc. Going a step deeper, we actually have the talkers. So these are the people who talk to you, and they go to your social media, they comment, they interact with you, but they also want to interact with other members of your community. So they seek out some Facebook groups, Discord servers. They want to share their experience with others in your community. Going a step tier deeper, we have creators. So these are the people who are really engaged into your community, and they actually take the time and effort to create something. So here I would put like streamers, YouTubers, any kind of content creators, cosplayers, fan art artists, etc., etc. And then going one step deeper, that's theorists. So these are the people that you probably are gonna know like every nickname of those people because they follow you everywhere. Maybe not in real life, but like on Twitter, they're everywhere in your notifications. They know everything. Anything you post, they're gonna try and find some clues. Maybe there's some hidden meaning in it. So, the conspiracy theories, as I call them. And obviously, not everyone will fit into just one tier. They can be somewhere in between. They can be in some of those tiers. And what you want to do, as bad as it sounds, but with the iceberg it works, you want to bring people down. So you want them to get more involved with you, with your game, with your community. Okay. So you have all those platforms that you can possibly be on, and at the beginning you have to just pick something. So where do you want to be? There's a lot, and obviously you don't want to, and you don't have to, and you probably don't want to be everywhere, okay? So, just pick something that you feel good with, you feel comfortable with, and that your community is, and that you're gonna be able to interact with them there. Obviously, there's like the big three, so Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, but you don't have to be everywhere. Maybe just pick one of those if you want to, go the classical way. And then if you want to focus on like video content or streamings, YouTube and Twitch are the obvious choices. Let's say you picked that you want to be on a specific platform, then you have to ask yourself when you should actually start conversing with your community, communicating with them, etc. And I would say that there is no good answer to this question, but for me the answer is whenever you have something to say. So it might be different. For us, it was the beep, let's say. When we started communicating for Cyberpunk, it was 2018, and we knew that we're gonna start our marketing campaign that year, that we will have something to show to people, so we wanted to let them know that, hey, we're back, and we're here to, be with you to build this community around this new game coming soon. But like I said, there's no good answer. If you just started working on a game and you have a plan of what you can show and say to your community, just go for it. Just have something prepared for them, something they can watch, look out for, and interact with.
So, the sirens topic. The question is actually not that far-fetched because we have an international team, right? We have an international community, and I will try to make this jokey question into a serious answer. When you work with community, you have to consider not only how it would land, for example, in Poland, right? Because the sound of the ambulance in Poland is different than the one in Germany, than the one in the US. So even things you take for granted might be different for your community in other regions. And you should, from the beginning, strive to think internationally. Because if you focus with all your work on, let's say, Poland, because we're here, right? It might be harder to scale it up later. And that's the question for you, Michal.
Oh, but this is really good answer. We actually sometimes, talk about doing something cool, but then think about it a little bit longer, a little bit deeper, and like this is very, yeah. Oh, nice. We have it. Tone of voice.
Okay. Now going into developing a strategy. So basically we covered the basics, right? But what do we do with these channels now? We with the research, we started the channels. What now? So let's dive into some of the elements of an actual strategy. And one of them is tone of voice. So tone of voice is basically how do I talk to my community, and it can be a hard question to actually answer. So keep in mind there are other smaller, easier questions that you can actually focus on and that will guide you to that answer. So first of all, who am I? This sounds super philosophical, but this is the base, right? Because maybe your tone of voice will be different if you are a big company doing MMORPGs, or maybe it will be a bit different than if you are a smaller company doing like cozy games, for example. Then think about who you are actually talking to. So think about their needs, so your audience, their needs, their expectations. Do they want to learn more about gameplay features or I don't know, balance of the cards, right? So like you should know your audience, obviously. And next, why are you actually talking to them? And here, think about your goals, your priorities, and not only selling the game, right? But think about your communication goals. And ultimately, it all boils down to how do you actually want to talk to them? Because obviously, there is no single right answer. If you want to be cool and edgy, cool. If you want to be nice and personal and positive, that's also okay. But what matters is that it makes sense and that you're consistent and it's clear to your audience who you are. So going into case study of Cyberpunk 2077, so before we launched the communication, actually everyone in our community team had prepared like a short pitch on how we see tone of voice for the game. I remember my pitch was actually inspired by GLaDOS, so you can imagine it was very sarcastic, passive-aggressive, but there's a lot of ways you can go, there's a lot of directions. And I will show you now what we ended up with, along with some actual examples that we had written down while we were preparing the strategy. So first of all, our tone of voice, we knew we wanted to be lore-oriented. Why? Because we are CDPR, we love stories, narrative is a king at CDPR, and we often use lore when writing all the posts for socials. Next, informative, because it was before the launch of communication, so before the release of the game, and it was important for us to actually share the information about the game, about the world. Next, to have that cyber technology aspect, right? So to be clear and simple, to the point. Of course, also casual, informal, sometimes some subtle humor, because we want to be personal with our community. Next, confident and consistent. Like, consistency is super important in general, but especially in our case, we felt, we have, like I said, communication in 13 languages, so it's super important that whenever we communicate something, we have the same messaging across the board. And, clever, fun, sometimes edgy, because this is simply what we respond to, what we like. And here you can actually see that we did follow our strategy. So we have the fun stuff, we have informative, but with like this cyber flair. We have the clear, simple, to the point. We have the casual stuff, informal, and more fun. Yes,
So getting back to the iceberg once again, you have you figured out where your community is, where you want to talk to them. You figured out how you want to talk to them, but you also have to take into consideration specifications of each platform, because each platform is different, and you cannot just copy and paste the content. Sometimes you have to be pretty specific. So we prepared a few case studies for like specific platforms, first of which will be Instagram. So we're probably familiar with Instagram, and this is, one of the biggest platforms, and it's highly visual. So most people use it to post and watch photos and videos, more videos right now. It also has like almost 2 billion users or even more, but this is usually used alongside other platforms. So those 2 billion users, only like less than 1% of them actually uses it exclusively. So they use other platforms to get their information, and knowing that, you can actually try to adjust your strategy. So for us, we went with this grid look, which should show up. Anyway, we are posting like 3 pictures or 6 pictures, so they actually, when you come to our profile, they give you, this bigger picture, let's say. So this actually looks really cool, but we had to educate our community so to let them know that, hey, this actually makes sense once you go to the profile. And also this requires some specific assets to be prepared for this platform. So I wanted to show you, if it goes here, yes. I do the briefs for our creative team, so they actually know what to prepare for Instagram, and you see how it translates from the brief to the final look, even on paper. Okay, next we go to TikTok. Also something you should be familiar with. It's one of the fastest growing platform, reached 100 million users super quickly. Also, as of April, people spend more time on TikTok than on YouTube monthly, which, if you compare the short format of TikTok to the long format of YouTube, it's really super impressive. But why people go to TikTok? They go there to get entertained, mostly to have some fun, to feel relatable, to share some cool videos with their friends. So it's a very laid down platform for basically fun. This also is a platform where super polished marketing materials don't really work. You have to have specific content prepared for TikTok, so super tailored. Even if you want to say the same thing that you are saying on other platforms, you have to find a way to say it in a cool way. And we actually had some videos, but I don't think they're gonna work. So if you want to check them out, go to PROJEKT on TikTok. But one example that I really wanted to talk about is when we were announcing the new Witcher saga. So we had this one key visual, we had some text to let people know what's going on, and this doesn't really translate to the short video fun format of TikTok. So we had to come up with something else. It's actually a video where we showcase putting this tweet up with some sounds from the Witcher game, so it's like a quest of announcing the new Witcher saga. So fun, completely tailored to the platform, but at the same time it gives you the same information that you would get on the other platforms. And since the video is not playing, maybe I will just skip it. And yes.
It's funny and you should check it out. Yes, let's maybe talk about Tumblr, because it's one of those places that shows our strategy when we say you can be everywhere you want to be and you should follow your community, because Tumblr has been called dead for the last decade in social media management. At the same time, it's still around, and it's basically what we would call the anti-Instagram, because among all the big social media channels, let's say, Tumblr is the one with the highest percentage of people that use it as their only and sole social media platform. So that means if you're not present there, you will not reach them anywhere else, because they simply don't care. Also, it's a very young platform, very female, and it's just if you know how to talk to them specifically, they will be very rewarding. So why Tumblr? Because we said, okay, we see that there are people that care about Witcher, that care about cyberpunk, and that are somehow underserviced by the rest of the social media channels that we have, because they care more about the romance in the game, they care about the art, they care about very specific things. So we decided to go there and to actually provide them with this kind of content. You can see here on the GIF, for example, that we did answer time, it's what they call them. It's a short form video format with developers where the community can ask questions and our devs answer them. Dominika and I actually launched this channel in 2019, and we thought maybe we will get like 200 questions, it would be fun, it would be easy, and then we looked in the inbox and had like 5,500, and we're kind of freaking out about this. And Pavis Hasko and Miles Toast responded to them, and we generated with $0 input 25 million impressions only on this video series, and then we redid it for Gamescom, 35 million impressions. So it's actually something that if you put in effort and you target them properly, and this doesn't only count for Tumblr, of course, then the community will reward it. And the specific case of this platform is that the shelf life is incredibly long, because people really don't care about the latest information. That's not why they go there, so they will just retweet old stuff from 2019. Case in point, we had no major communication beats last year, and we were still in the top 20 most discussed games on the platform, so the investment actually pays off over time. That being said, if you're looking for something to sponsor postings and to have like eyeballs on the latest news, maybe focus on Facebook and Twitter, but if you're looking for like something creative, then you can also visit platforms like Tumblr and Pinterest, which goes to say, know your community and follow them where they are. And this is actually how we made it look. As you can see, it looks super different from our other social media channels, because we worked with our creative team and our online team to make this a super tailored experience for our community on this platform. And now,
I think it's me again. And
Yes.
guidelines. Yes, so I know that everyone hates any kinds of rule sets and guidelines, but let's stay with me, okay? So guidelines are basically you anticipating the needs and questions before they arise. So it's super important to actually think about them. And first of all, internal guidelines. This is super straightforward, you know, like all the things that we are talking about right now. So the summary of the strategy with examples, of course, any other documentation that you want to do or that you are already kind of doing. And why? Because first of all, you can share all these documents with members of other teams, you know, in your company, so they can hopefully learn more about what you are actually doing as a community manager or on some other position. Next, you know, if you are bringing new people on board, this is super awesome for them to actually read through like all the stuff that you have already prepared, all the examples of all the content that you have been thinking about. And of course, I think this is the most important, that you can always go back to it. And you know, you'll be doing the work anyway, or you were doing the work anyway. You are doing all the research, all the analysis, all the strategy preparations. And then to have it in a place that you can go back to and just, you know, even in 2 years, and go back and see what you have been actually thinking about and compare how you are doing now. This is super awesome, and it will come in handy. I can promise you that. And let's go to the external ones. Okay, so first of all, again, I know everyone hates writing or reading guidelines, but I think what is important here with the external guidelines is that we should make them, obviously, but try to think about making guidelines that not only protect you, your company, but also your community. So be as transparent as you can, as clear, provide examples, be helpful, and this will go a long way. So first of all, we have EULA. This is very much legal stuff, so I will not be going into it, but I hope our legal team will be proud of me saying that, yes, hi, Kuba. And, you know, but why is it important? Because it's the base of everything else. All the other guidelines will ultimately refer to EULA, and even with EULA, you can try to make it more easy and accessible to your audience. So, for example, with Cyberpunk 2077, you can see here a little glimpse of our EULA, and you know, on the left we have the boring legal talk. Sorry, Kuba. And on the right, you can see the nice, quick summary using some in-lore language and basically summarizing what's on the left in way more accessible format than it's on the left. And next, so going into the community guidelines. So first of all, fun content guidelines. So this is something that we have done, and honestly, I will tell you that this is a game changer for me, because basically we have this list of different guidelines for our community on what they can do and what they should maybe not do. And think about what kind of content is okay or not okay for you. So there will be a lot of different content to actually think about. And the more specific you are, the more examples you provide, the better. And think about if there are any general or maybe like specific rules that community should follow, from different monetization rules, like using it in games or other products, or your stance on offensive content. So this is something that we don't usually think about, but we should, because the more you actually provide upfront, the lower the barrier of entry into your community will be, and the smaller amount of emails you will get later. So that's important. Next, super briefly. Okay, contest rule sets. So obviously, when you are preparing a bigger activation, contest rule set is a great way to have a basis of, if you have questions about stuff, you can always refer to it. You can be fair to everyone because you're using the same rules for everyone. And of course, FAQs, which you should use wherever you can, with all the basics, of course, all the dates, deadlines, because you want them to be as visible as you can. And think about the questions that might arise, for example, for a contest that you had the rule set for, and try to include the answers in much more accessible language than you would have in the rule set written by the legal team.
Yes. And you may wonder, because we told you how to actually build the community, right? So all these steps we went through so far are about setting the baseline work, the foundation of how to actually embrace it. But then how often do you actually write the guidelines, right? Like how often do you name channels? Not that often. So we want to talk to you briefly about daily work. We have a lot of examples about a variety of things, because we often get this question like, what do community managers actually do? You're just on social media, you're just responding to Facebook, and yes, we do sometimes, even if that's probably the worst part of the job. So what other things are there that we do? And we want to walk you through some of it. So the everyday communication, building bridges, we will go into what this means, research and analysis, which is a way bigger element of our job than people often realize, then some special activities, community appreciation, and events. Because of the technical hiccups, we might not be able to run through the whole thing. We will see where we go. What I want to mention at the beginning is, of course, everything we say today is kind of tainted from the budget that we have as a company, right? That doesn't mean that if you have maybe a smaller team or less budget that you cannot do these things. So we will try to point out where you can do what. So let's start with the everyday communication. You can see the beep again. I will not go into the overall images you can see. What we mean with everyday communication is you actually have to remember that you're talking to human beings. And it can be overwhelming, especially once your game gets bigger, to react to people, but this is the absolute foundation. So if you don't react to comments on Twitter, if you're not reacting to reviews on Steam, if you're not actually responding to DMs, I want to say, start with that. I was about to say something else. You should start with this and let people know that they're actually heard. And you can do fun interactions with them, and community really appreciates it. There's a lot of times where people also vent their frustrations, and then you respond to them in a nice way. and they are shocked that a human responds to you. So make this the pillar of everything, that people on the other side know that there's humans in your company. And because we're humans, we like having fun. So also remember that if it's part of your strategy, to embrace the fun. So for example, there's this beautiful pigeon that you see, right? There was a discussion on Reddit about users complaining more or less about the textures on the pigeon. And instead of just, trying to put it under the rug, now we embraced it, and now there's like a Protect the Pigeon initiative, and people are embracing it because we said, okay, we see it, we acknowledge it, and we're taking
But
this.
our devs actually wanted to fix that pigeon.
Yes, we actually stopped people from fixing it. And also just briefly, be aware of what is happening on social media and in the wider industry, because there's always opportunities to, I would say, jump on bandwagons, right? If you see trends, if you see certain jokes, embrace them, go with them. It gives you extra visibility, and it also shows that you're in tune with the audience instead of just having a monologue to them. You're in a dialogue.
Bridge building, super literal in here, but I think this shows really well this metaphor. As a community manager, you are the bridge between your community and your developers. They can find some shortcuts, obviously, like meeting on an event, your developer going out to read the comments on Facebook or on Reddit, a community member asking the developer questions on Twitter, etc. But you're still the main way, and you should be able to, control this conversation, because this is a two-way bridge. So yes, you share information from your developers with our community, so any news, what's coming, what's changing, what are you planning, what is happening, patch notes, etc. is written form or live streams, whichever you like, but also you provide feedback from your community to your developers. And this is super important because sometimes your developers, even if they bypass you and they read something in the internet, they might not understand what your community actually wants, and this is your job to communicate that to developers. So the community wants to have this feature. For example, in our case, it was a walk button for PC, and developers were like, but why do they want that? Like, it doesn't make sense. It's not that important. And we knew that this is super important for our community. We have gotten so many comments and messages about it, and we explained it to the developers, and they said, okay, let's do it. So thanks to us being the bridge, this feature got in the game. And this is a very simple and a little bit of a silly example, but there are a lot more where you actually tell your developers what the community cares about. At the same time, it's not like only requests and bad things that you provide to your developers, it's also appreciation. So any good things your community shares. And we have this series of From Community with Love. Every couple of months or whenever our dev team needs some moral boost, we just gather all the nice messages that we got from our community. And sometimes it's like, oh, I have 1,000 hours in the game, or like, I met my wife through your game, or you helped me via depression. There's really a lot of life stories from our community. We share them with the developers to show them that people care, and even if they see the bad things, because the people that are not happy are the loudest on the internet, but there's also the good things that sometimes get lost among the worse stuff.
Yes. I already told you that research and analysis is a big part. So why is it a big part? Because ideally, you should have goals. As a community team, you should have goals and priorities you work towards, and they should be part, if you have it, of a wider communications and or marketing department. So you shouldn't work in a vacuum, but you should know what the company is working towards and then set the strategy accordingly. And to reach a strategy, community managers actually should do, in our case we do it, a lot of research in the industry, and on the other hand also within your community. Research in the industry is mainly best practices. For example, if you see other gaming companies do something, we're not calling it stealing, although good artists steal, right? But we're getting inspired. We're seeing how do other companies communicate, for example, patches, how do they communicate expansions? And then we try to see if we can take this and turn it into the red way of doing it. At the same time, it's also just to develop your team. So if you're lucky enough to have a team that's more than one person, which I hope at one point you will have, then it's also good to just give more experience and more seniority to other people, and competitor analysis, competitor research is great. It's a great way for doing that, and also it just keeps you on your toes, it keeps you fresh. You should always try to surprise your community with new things to do, because there's nothing worse and more boring than just repeating the same thing you've been doing over and over again. So try to always find new things. Just as your devs are improving the game, you should improve your own game. I'm very proud of that. And on the other hand, how does your community react to what we are doing? This is part of this bridge building, what we talked about, which means you should do consistent reports and research about your community sentiment and your numbers. We broke this down into 3 parts. Of course, they can be merged. So qualitative and quantitative are basically the 2 sides of the medallion, which means that we, after big patches, after game releases, after just a while, we sit down and we go through everything, all the social platforms, all the languages, everything that we did. Because yes, of course, your developers will be, for example, very active on Twitter, and they see it on Twitter. But how many languages do they speak? How many social media platforms do they visit, right? Whereas we have like 13, 14 people that can check different social media platforms in different languages, and our job is to compile all of that into one comprehensive report about what your actual community from Brazil to Japan is thinking about your game. So, qualitative, it's the sentiment. So, what do people actually feel? Because if you spend any time on Twitter, you know that if you see a tweet with 4,000 quote tweets, it's not really a good sign, right? Like, numbers-wise, it's great. You have a lot of engagement, but I wouldn't celebrate that. So, check the actual comments, see how people react to it, and write it down. That can be in whatever form you want to. We have a template that we developed over the years. We started with a spreadsheet. Make sure to write down what people actually think and give it priorities as well. And then on the other hand, it's the quantitative part, it's the numbers part, it's the part that makes me very excited. It's the KPIs, the engagement numbers, how many people see your content. Why is this important? Because you should do both, right? And you should also adjust your strategy because you have goals. If your goals are to, I will make something up, to reach 1 million followers, then if you see that it's not working, you have to adjust your strategy. So it's a living thing. So you should do these reports, and then it's informative, because what good is the report if it stays within your team? So sharing is caring. Once you have those, share them with the wider communication team, marketing team if you have them. If you don't have them, at least share it with the developers, right? Let them know, hey, our community says this about the patch. They love these 5 elements. This one didn't hit well. And then ideally, it's a dialogue between developers and the community team to figure out what is the best priority and what to work on. I am looking at the time, so I will just...
10 minutes.
10 minutes, okay, I don't even have to look at the time. Special activities, this can be everything from €0 PLN budget, I'm sorry, I'm a German, 0 PLN budget to the sky is the limit budget. But what we mean with this is engaging the iceberg. So remember what Alicja talked about of the level from the people that just observe it, the casuals, to the, I don't want to say the bottom part, but the people that are most engaged in it. And make sure that you offer something for everyone, because it can be very, very off-putting if you want to enter a community. For example, also if you have a multiplayer game, right? You want to get into it, and there's so much jargon, and you understand nothing. So try to kind of create a ramp for people to start, and then become more and more comfortable, and then maybe become creators and maybe become the theorists. And you can help with that. So you can see some examples here from contests we did. We did a school quiz for The Witcher, which requires no information, no knowledge at all, and was in the browser. You could just click through some questions, very low barrier of entry, and just figure out what Witcher school you are, share it on social media, and like kick off a conversation with other community members. And on the other end of the spectrum, we also have like cosplay guides, right? For like super invested people that want to create their costumes, just to help them on their way. And we have a million other examples. We could give 1 hour of talk about this. So we will just focus on one.
Okay, so stay with me, guys, because this is a complicated example, and this is going to the deepest level of the community. But it starts at the you know, bottom, at the surface. So this is a really good way to, you know, get people down, get people more involved with your game, more engaged in your community. So ARG, this is a definition, but what I wanted to focus on is interactiveness and transmedia. So your community can actually get into work on this, solve some puzzles that you put out. They can do it together, they can do it individually, so it's a very good, good bonding experience for them as well. And transmedia, so this is something that goes beyond your game. This goes even beyond the internet, that can go into the real life, and I will show you some examples of that. So super engaging activity, which starts on the surface with like a tweet, and then you just go down the rabbit hole. So this goes for the deepest level of the community, but also helps you grab people and get them more involved with your game. And in our case, this is a long game of the ARG. We started during 2018 demo of Cyberpunk at E3, and still going on. So how do we do this ARG super complicated game for community? We have some tools. So for example, custom websites that we created for in-lore. So some are about our companies that are actually in Cyberpunk 2077. Then we have messages hidden in images. So like I said, it starts easy on Twitter. This is a picture that we tweeted, and it actually has a hidden bit.ly link, and then you go deeper. Under this bit.ly link, you get this image, which is more abstract, let's say. Then we have some coded messages, you know, from the binary and Morse that most people are familiar with to Caesar cipher is pretty easy, and then codes that I don't even understand, so let's skip it. The pink image that we saw, if you open it in the text editor, you actually get this nonsense, and then there is a code. This is coded with Caesar cipher. So basically, you move the letter by specific amount. So it looks like a URL. If you use Caesar cipher, this gives you a URL. Then we have some, for example, phone number with cryptic messages. We actually recorded some voiceover for that. So you had to call this number. There was a voice that told you another coded message, which actually led you to some mysterious users on Reddit. You could follow this user, acting like a super normal user, commenting on, you know, Cyberpunk Reddit, and then just posting another clue to the puzzle. Our community, actually those messages on Discord don't exist anymore, but thanks to involvement of our community, there are transcripts on the internet, screenshots, you can find everything. And finally, as I mentioned, we actually went out into the real world. So we sent packages to influencers that we knew are kind of involved in the ARG, or at least know that it exists. And we send them a next step, next clues for that. And like I mentioned, this is something that is still going on. So it's not the end. If you are curious about what we have done so far, I highly recommend going to Game Detective's wiki page, where it's broken down really nicely. And if you want to, you know, follow what happens next, watch out.
Yes. I will skim this very briefly. Don't take your community for granted if you have them. If you have people that actually create content for you, give them shout-outs, post their creations, maybe you can create spotlights for them. I know at the beginning you won't have this community, right? That's the whole point. You will build them up, but once you see them pop up, share this, because we can tell you from experience that once you do this, more people would actually get inspired to draw their own fan art, to create their own cosplay, because they see that you support them, right? Important is always give credit to the creators, because this is a big part of the inspiration, the motivation for them. I will skip this because there's a threatening looking person with a sign that gives us the time, so I will just talk about community events. This gives you the chance to meet people on a personal level. Online is always great, but if you have the chance, do it in person. And this can be done at every budget level. Of course, here you see pictures from our 20th anniversary party that we did last year in our office in Warsaw, and there was some budget involved, but you can do it at all levels of budget. You can do, I know of people that do Mario Kart tournaments, even though it's not their IP, but they just bring people together to play, or they just bring people into their office to have cake or like beers with them if it's possible, right? Just offer an option for them to meet you, and they will reward it. Because in our case, our commitment is that we want our community to feel as important as media and influencers. That's our whole goal, and we are doing these events for exactly this purpose. And this is just some of the examples that we're doing. I will skip this now, and I will say, if you're lucky enough to have a great event team like we do, you don't have to worry too much about these ones, about the big ones. I will not, try to pronounce the Polish ones, so I would just say there's Tokyo Game Show, there's Gamescom, there's what?
Pyrkon.
This one. If you are going to these events, then just try to interact with people. And then from there, you scale it up. And the rest, you can ask us after this. We will be outside and we can talk to you about events some more, because we would like to prefer to do the conclusions with you. So, there's a lot to say, and there are options for like 5 other follow-up talks that we could do, about 45 minutes, about how to create a positive community, how to deal with negativity, how like the strategy alone could be 45 minutes. What we want you to take away is that it's a strategic position. It's more strategic than it's apparent at the first glance, and try to approach it this way. So set yourself some goals and then always recalibrate what it is you want to do. And at the same time, as I said, don't be in a vacuum. Talk to your developers, talk to the rest of your publishing, marketing department, and you are working as one team, right? So like pull together, listen to what the game is, and then try to bring this back to community, and vice versa. Bring best practices and ideas from community back, and this is already like the biggest part of the success story. Also, start small. You don't have to over-exaggerate with doing everything at once. Focus on some things, do them well, and then scale up. Because this all also came from one person started, and that person started hiring people, right? It didn't start out as one. That's why we said to build it from scratch. Because also every game kind of needs a different community, because you cannot communicate to the Wendt community the way you do with The Witcher, the way you do with Cyberpunk. They're very different. Another interesting talk we could give one day. But start small, scale up. And also, have fun. It's a great job. Remember that you're talking with people, and just enjoy the show. And now, do we have time for some questions? The man with the threatening paper disappeared, so maybe we have some time for questions.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. This was a great talk. I'm super sorry for all the technical hiccup that we had, but I'm sure that you will be able to find all our 3 speakers next to CD Projekt Red's booth, and this is the opportunity. Maybe also, even I had several questions that I wanted to ask, mainly about AI and how it impacts your work, and if this has the potential to kind of automate some of it. Maybe we'll have opportunity to participate in Digital Dragons workshops, because apart from Digital Dragons Academy that we are doing for wannabes and juniors, we are starting the Digital Dragons workshops for mid and senior people from the industry, kind of to exchange knowledge, to make some opportunity to more experienced people to also share. So maybe there will be opportunity, who knows. Once again, applause for this fantastic trio.
Thank you.
Thank you.